any dog that would be willing to fight a wolf is a complete badass in my mind.
Yeah,
by the way.
dude.
Okay.
Yeah, they kill wolves like fast. It's crazy, man.
Welcome to the On the Edge podcast with your host, Scott Groves. Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's Scott Groves with the On the Edge podcast. I'm here with a newer friend, Kyle Thowsen, Thowsen. We actually do jiu-jitsu together, met a couple months ago. And what's crazy is I didn't know anything about you. And then I'm scrolling through Instagram and I see you with some giant dog attacking your arm. Turns out that you're like a dog whisperer. Like, I can't remember what's his name that was on the Planet channel. It's VegasValleyK9.com or on Instagram, just Vegas Valley K9. If you like dogs or you like seeing dogs do crazy shit, go follow him on Instagram. And selfishly, we're moving into a new property that's got like some property to it. And I want to buy some new dogs, but I also want to get some crazy mutts from the kennel. Like, I don't want to pay $5,000 for some designer dog. So I'm like, I got to talk to somebody about dogs. And then immediately, like, you just showed up in my profile. So I'm like, oh, I got to get this guy on the podcast and talk to him. So I think you're a Las Vegas native.
I am,
Las Vegas native. You're like one of the 12 that actually didn't relocate here from California. But tell us the journey of, like, I know this business is fairly new for you, but I don't think anybody wakes up one day and just like, I'm going to get bitten by dogs for a living. So tell me the evolution of you starting Vegas Valley K9, which is just, I mean, the Instagram's really good, man. It's like actually engaging for a topic that I don't really think I care about.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate that a lot.
By the way, drinking Modelo, the new #1 selling light beer in America, because Bud Light shit on their own marketing. Anyway, I digress. So tell me the story of how you get to a point where you're training dogs full time.
Yeah, so got into dogs early on, grew up with them my whole life, always had Rottweilers. My dad was actually a Metro officer here in town, and he was a canine officer way back in the day.
This is starting to make sense.
Yeah, so he had one of the only Rottweilers that was on the force back then. And
I thought they only had like German Shepherds, like, because they're working dogs and they're smart and stuff like that.
Yeah, so back in the day, things were a lot different, right? People had to find their own dogs. And they didn't come like trained up, right? Now they get them shipped in from overseas or at local places, and they get them in varying degrees of being trained. And then they take them and they go through a whole process of it. But the dogs are like bred specifically for this, gone through this thing. Back in the day, people just had to go find their own dogs. As an officer, you were responsible for going and finding your own dog and then training it yourself with your buddies and then taking it onto the street. And so my dad's Rottweiler that he had, he found him in a yard, and this dog had just been dragging a tire filled with cement around this yard. He was just chained to it, like out in the front yard. And my dad just saw the dog and like fell in love with him immediately. And so offered the guy like a couple bags of food and like trade some stuff, and took the dog. And then that dog went on to be his partner and canine. And they worked together for years and had a lot of live bites, did a lot of cool stuff. So that's kind of the roots of where it all started. So we had other Rottweilers growing up. When I got my own as an adult, I was like, I need to, get back into training, because ours were always obedient stuff, but it was just pretty basic stuff.
Right.
We weren't doing
Sit,
anything
stay,
crazy.
whatever.
Yeah. And so when I got my own, I just started researching stuff, getting into stuff, learning new techniques, how people are doing things.
So about how many years ago did you get into like actually looking up training more than just sit, stay?
Yeah. So that was like 7 years ago.
Okay.
When I got my dog Cutter. He's a Rottweiler. Got him up in Reno, and Mary, Big Love Kennels, super cool lady. And she told me, like, this dog's going to be like, really drivey. He's going to have a lot of energy. You're going to have to like do stuff with him. I'm like, okay, I'm excited. So started looking up training, and then my dad was like, I have a friend that's here in town that does a sport with his dog. Let me talk to him and see what he's got going on. Maybe we can go and train with him. I'm like, okay. So we go and met up with this guy, Bill Castle, and he's another retired police officer, and he had been doing this sport called Schutzhund. And it's Schutzhund, yeah.
Like
so
with Shih Tzus or?
No. So it's a German dog sport that used to be a test for like the police and military dogs.
Got it.
And then it formed into a sport, and civilians got involved into it long ago. It's gone through a bunch of different names. They call it IGP now. But,
okay. So is this like you have a trained working dog and you do, fetch, stay, hike, heel, attack, whatever?
Yeah, so there's 3 different parts to it. There's tracking, There's obedience, which has like some agility stuff. You have to go over jumps. They have to retrieve dumbbells, and then focused healing and through people and do all kinds of stuff like that.
What is focused healing of a dog?
When they look at you while they're walking next to you, right? So just just healing in general is the dog walking next to you.
Yeah, like staying by your heel, not like healing your injury.
Yeah.
I'm like, what kind of cosmic shit is this? We have dogs healing injuries? Okay, that makes more sense.
Cool.
Oh, I was totally out of it. I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
All right, so this is like, this is kind of like when you see those weird horses that take the little galloping steps and they go sideways and dressage or what, I don't know what it's called.
Yeah.
Okay, this sounds kind of similar to that.
Yeah.
It's like the doggy Olympics.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then there's also bite work and protection. So I also do the decoy work. So to kind of fast forward through it, 7 years ago when my dog was 6 months old, we met up with Bill at the Schutzen Club, ended up liking it. I stayed there and I've been with them, training with them, with that group. They're like a family now. Shout out Vegas Valley Schutzen Club.
There you go. Schutzen Club. I learned something new every day. I didn't even know what that word meant.
Yeah. So
can we go back real quick to your dad just picking up some random Rottweiler out of the front yard and then making that a police dog? That sounds like a liability nightmare. Was the Vegas just like the Wild West in the police department when you were here younger?
Oh yeah. I mean, I wasn't even born then. That was in like the early 80s.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was long ago, and like they wore cowboy boots and shit back then. You know what I mean? Like they're clacking around, chasing people down. But yeah, the dog did really great. Had super nice control. The dog, he had like an old Blazer, and it had the big mirrors on it.
Yeah.
And the dog would stand out the window because they didn't have door poppers and stuff back then. So you just had to leave the windows down.
Right.
And so the dog would push the mirror down and stand on it and just kind of like look out the window. And if he was doing a stop or whatever and watching if something was going to go down, he was going to pop out. You know,
that's pretty intimidating. If you look in your rearview mirror and there's just this yoked out like Rottweiler looking out the door at you, like don't fuck up, dude. Don't reach for your waist belt. How much can you train a dog to like understand situationally, right? So I'm thinking your dad doing a traffic stop and like. Obviously, a dog might know when you're getting physically attacked, but can they sense like I don't know, I don't know how to say this other than like can they smell fear in the air? Like do they know when something's wrong?
There's definitely like hormones and stuff that go on when people, depending on how close they are. But yeah, there's a lot of factors that go into it. There's body language. They're masters of body language. They're masters at our body language as well, not just other dogs, just because they've been bred to be alongside us for so long.
Yeah,
and so. Yeah, like, you know, you go and you pick up your keys and the dog knows that, you know, you're going to be going outside and they get all like amped up. You know, they're always just watching us trying to predict what's going to happen.
Right.
So
the say it again, the type of training that you guys did?
Schutzen.
Yeah. So if you want to have like a super well-trained dog, like you get your 6-month-old Rottweiler, and why Rottweilers, by the way? Just why that breed?
It was just because my dad had found that one, and then after that, he just loved them. You know, they just have a really cool temperament. They're really good, like family dogs.
Don't they have like a bad rap? Like, isn't there like every decade or so we go through like a new breed of dogs that has like a bad rap?
Yeah,
like used to be Doberman Pinschers, then it was Pit Bulls, then it was Rottweilers. Yeah. Why do certain classes or breeds of dog get a bad rap?
Usually it's something comes up, they attack a baby or something happens. And I mean, this can happen with most breeds of dogs, you know, given the right circumstance, any dog will bite. Right. So, you know, they leave the kid alone with the dog and maybe the kid comes over and starts bugging the dog and the dog's like showing signs like, hey, I'm not comfortable, get away. But, you know, the parents aren't paying attention or they're away or whatever happens. And then the dog nails them and it can be lethal. You know what I mean? A dog like snaps at a kid and you know it's
all
good.
over.
So usually like big event like that'll happen and then it kind of puts it out there. But there are like genetic things, you know, with pit bulls, they were bred to be aggressive towards other dogs. You know what I mean? There's great pit bulls out there that are super friendly to other dogs. There's ones that aren't friendly to other dogs, but you can train them to a point where you have control over them and it's not like a big danger to society. You know what I mean? But you have to be responsible. It's important to always research what kind of breeds you're looking at because they are all very different and they have genetic drives and needs that need to be expressed or else they start going crazy. That's why we see so much anxiety in dogs these days.
Yeah.
They're lacking purpose.
Right.
All dogs were originally bred for working of some sort. Right. So if we don't know what that job is and give them a task or something else to replace it that's fairly close, they just start going crazy, you know?
Yeah, I had heard, I don't know if this was like a media outlet or a friend of a friend or somebody was talking about like they had an old police dog that was a German Shepherd and like they didn't give it a job And so the dog assigned itself the job of being like a lifeguard. So one of the kids would jump in the pool, the dog would dive right after it and like usher it to the side of the pool because it's like, I'm saving lives, man.
Yeah,
like I gotta do something because if you don't give a dog a job, they go stir crazy, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. So I've looked at different breeds of dogs because like I think there's a couple of dogs that I think are beautiful, like Rhodesian Ridgebacks. And of course, every dog I read about that I'm really interested in, the like recommended is, oh, you got to run them at least 5 miles a day. And I'm like, I screwed up my knees in the Army. I'm not running 5 miles a day anymore. So like do different breeds require different things, like, or are all big dogs the same and all small dogs are the same?
No, they're all different. Yeah.
So give me a couple breakdowns of like.
So like you were talking about with like the Rhodesian Ridgeback, those are known to be like really good like long distance runners. So people that like to do like marathons and stuff, they get a nice fit Rhodesian Ridgeback. Like that dog will just pace with you all day long. Yeah. You know, whereas other breeds, the endurance isn't gonna. You get a Mastiff, right, or a Saint Bernard, they're not gonna want to jog with you. You know? They're gonna be hot, and they're like no. But like back in the day, like Saint Bernards, for example, like they were doing mountain rescue stuff and doing all kinds of stuff. They were like really fit, strong dogs, but it's just totally different environment.
Got it.
Huskies, they want to run.
That old like cartoon of like the snow dog with like the barrel of hot liquor on its neck. That's a real thing. They were bred for working in the snow.
Yeah. They would do mountain stuff and find people and do different stuff like that. Yeah.
What a trip. All right, so 7 years ago anyway, you get your dog, you start going to this training. Is that like a daily thing, a weekly thing? Did they give you like an hour lesson, then you had to go back and do shit at home, or?
Yeah, so within the group, we're all just pet owners that own our own dogs, and we train our own dogs. And then we work together, and, guys like Bill that have been doing this sport for a really long time and done all kinds of things, they kind of help you and show you along the path, and you kind of learn things on your own, maybe go to different seminars or learn from different people, and then you kind of add everything in, and you're just working with your dog, but we all just kind of group together to help each other out, and we give each other advice and stuff like that. And then about 3 years ago, I started helping people with their pet dogs, just kind of on the side.
Got it. So like that first 4 years, because I want to get to the business of the pet dogs, but that first 4 years, like, what's the goal? Did you just want a better behaved dog, or do you do competitions?
Yeah, both. Yeah, both. So yeah, for me, like originally, I'm like, I just want my dog to be cool and listen to me. I want to be able to take him out and just do normal things and not have problem.
Not have him nail somebody's leg.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because he's huge. He's almost 100 pounds. It's like you got to have control over him, and he's a spicy boy too.
Yeah. So at 100 pounds, just, so Gabriel, my son, is 65 pounds. He does, kids jiu-jitsu, but it's like at some level, an adult's always going to be stronger. Even my wife, he's getting close. But with a 100-pound dog, I feel like it's a 100-pound fucking bicep. It's just like it's just a block of muscle.
Yeah.
So comparatively speaking, a 50-pound dog to a 50-pound child, how much stronger or more violent can that dog be?
It's insane, dude.
Yeah. Is it like 2x, like 20x? Like I gotta imagine a 50-pound dog that wants to do some damage.
Yeah. I mean, probably like 5 to 10 times.
Okay.
Like, sure. Yeah. It's like you get like a 50-pound Mal, like working Mal that's high drive, like. It's hectic,
All right, what's a Mal?
Malinois.
Are they the ones that are in all the like army movies? These are the dogs that are like bred for army service, ripping somebody's throat out, finding landmines, shit like that.
Yeah, for sure. But they're also like really good family dogs too.
Really?
Yeah, you can get like a really nice bred one, and they're like super sweet, good with kids. You can get a personal protection one that like will defend you.
Mm-hmm. You can buy a personal protection dog.
Yeah.
How does that work?
So you go to somebody who sells personal protection dogs, and the dog is like usually 2, 3, 4 years old, and they're like fully trained up. So the dog is like, will full on, if you say go bite that person, doesn't matter what that person's doing, that dog needs to go and bite that person and engage them. If you're just walking and somebody just attacks you, the dog needs to know that they need to defend you. And it's a really huge thing. Takes a lot of work that goes into it, and usually they're like between $30,000 and $60,000.
Dude, you could spend 50 G's on a self-protection dog?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So,
sometimes more,
So if you're not comfortable with firearms or getting your concealed carry permit, the option is, instead of a $500 gun and some training, you can get a $50,000 dog that will be like your own loaded weapon.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. I don't have $50,000 to spend on a dog, but if I did, I think about, if you traveled a lot for work, and your wife and kids were home alone, if I was a professional speaker and I had to leave all the time, like I would love to have 2 loaded dogs in my house just to like protect them on a whim.
Yeah.
Seems like a decent investment. Oh, but then you have to buy them every 5 to 10 years because they age out and die
Yeah,
sadly.
yeah. I mean, like a good Malinois, like they can live up to 15 years old.
Okay.
You know?
So 2 or 3 years to train them. Maybe you get 10 years out of them, 50 G's. Yeah, like $5,000 a year, if you're wealthy, it doesn't sound like a bad investment to protect your family.
Yeah.
All right,
exactly.
sorry. I keep getting off course because this is all fascinating to me. So you take your dog. Do you do shows, competitions, whatever with your dog?
Yeah. So
What does that look
we
like?
compete. So there's different kind of like levels of the trial, right? There's each club can put on a club trial. So it's just, kind of small. Just you and your club, and you can invite other people to go if you want, but everything that's like official and gets booked all goes through Germany, right? So we have these like score books that we have to fill out. We got to mail in for them every year, and they send them out, and we fill out our score books. And then when we go to a trial, the judge fills it out. And as a decoy, I also have a book that like I can fill out. So all this stuff gets tracked, and then
What's a decoy?
The helper, so the guy that gets bit.
Got it.
Right. Yeah, so they call him helper or decoy.
So that's part of the competition is like having the dude with the big pad on their arm get attacked?
Yeah, so there's the 3 parts: the tracking, the obedience, and then the bite work and protection.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's like a full, there's so much to it. And like each IGP is really big on precision, right? Everything is like super judged to a point, like where the dog's at, how far forward they are, where their head is at, what their mood's like. And IGP mood is a really big part, right? There's many different bite sports. There's suit sports that guys are in the full suit. And then there's the sleeve sports. And in all of those, they're judged very differently, right?
I think I want to do the full suit, right? Because like if they miss your arm and they clamp onto your neck, that's a bad day.
Most of them that are trained on the sleeve, they know what they're going for, and they just want the sleeve. Yeah.
So how long before like you started training to where you're like, oh, my dog is like proficient, like I could enter a regional level thing of this IGP tournament?
Well, it was kind of tough because right as he was kind of coming into his prime, COVID hit. And so everything was done for like 2 years, right? We stopped training as a club altogether for like 6 months, and like I didn't really do anything with him.
Yeah.
And so I got like his first title like before that, which is the BH, and it's like a evaluation of the dog's temperament. So you do some healing, you do some kind of obedient stuff, but there's a lot of different tests that are focused on how does the dog interact with people? Is the dog aggressive towards people? If the dog's like left tied to the fence and you walk away, is the dog going to freak out if other people are walking by or if there's other dogs? So it just kind of mostly to test the temperament of the dog before they have you continue on and do other parts where there is the protection and all the other stuff. Right?
So part of this is like getting a dog, training a dog, treating a dog right to where they're totally chill until it's time to not be chill.
Yeah. Yeah. And for a lot of these sport dogs, it is a sport. They have a very good understanding of context, right? They're not just looking to like nuke everybody that's just walking around. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of nice dogs. There's some dogs that are more sharp and like aggressive. So dogs that are very serious and they take it serious. Like some of those dogs, you can't just like walk up and pet. Like they'll just snap at your hand.
Yeah.
And then there's other dogs. My dog has a super flexible temperament. So he'll be super chill, love everybody, get belly rubs. And then I say, watch that guy. And the decoy's there, and he'll explode, and he's barking, and he's like, I'm going to eat you. And they can drop the sleeve and walk over, and he'll follow the dude, right? He's like, I'm going to fight you. Let's go. He's pulling on the harness.
He knows when it's game time.
Yeah, he knows. And then, do the bite work. Everything's clean, good control. We out him. I bring him over. He lays down, and then the decoy can come over and pet him, and he'll just roll over, and he's like back to it, right? He just switches super fast. And like I've had him like work with kids, bite kids, and do all that. Like he's just super, super cool, friendly. He loves everybody. He gets along with dogs.
Hey, this quick interruption is brought to you by me, Scott Groves, the host of the On the Edge podcast. This podcast is brought to you by me. I'm a loan officer who can help you with a mortgage in all 50 states across the United States. I also coach loan officers. So if you are a home buyer who's looking to get a mortgage, if you're a realtor who's looking to partner with an awesome loan officer, or if you're a loan officer looking for coaching, get in touch with me. It's those sources of revenue that allow us to produce this podcast and get out a new episode to you every week for the last couple of years. So if you're looking for a mortgage, if you're looking for a mortgage lender to partner with, or you're looking for a mortgage coach, I'm your guy. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. So is there like a series of commands that you go through to turn them on from like, I'm thinking about Mike Tyson, right? Getting into a ring.
Yeah.
And he would tell these stories of like, yeah, you know, when I was in the dressing room, I'd be a normal human. And then once I start swaying and punching the wall and warming up, I just turn into an animal.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's really scary, the thought of Mike Tyson as an animal.
Right?
But is there like a series of commands you give him to turn him on? Like if you were at home and it's just in chill mode and my kids are over there playing and then you hear, you know, somebody break the glass of the back window, what happens for him to get stimulated and turn into aggressive dog?
Yeah, so like it's more, again, like the dogs really understand context, right? There are things that I would say within the sport to like be like, oh, like watch him, you know, or I can give him a command to like go and run up and bark but not bite.
Do you give the commands in German since everything's based in Germany?
Some people do.
Okay.
I do some of them in German and some of them in English.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can do German, you can do English, you can do Belgian, you can do all kinds of stuff. You can do Spanish if like you spoke Spanish.
Yeah. Because the idea is like if you tell a dog to attack somebody else and he knows all of his commands in German, and I'm yelling him in English to stop, he won't stop because that's not the command he knows, right?
That dog don't give a shit whether you know the words or not. You know what I mean? These dogs know how to work, and a good dog, they're not listening to the guy that they're biting. It doesn't matter if you know the magic words. It's not like that, you know.
Oh,
people think like, oh, you're gonna like, I'm gonna come and control your dog because I know your words. It's like, no, you're not. You don't have the relationship with my dog. You don't have the understanding of what we're doing.
Yeah.
He doesn't know you. You know what I mean? If I gave you the leash and said, hey, you know, go with them, like, yeah, you could work him and he would listen for you. Some dogs won't, but like my dog would. Yeah. But if me and you were fighting, like my dog's not gonna stop because you're asking him to stop.
Yeah,
you know?
dog's ripping my leg off.
Yeah,
my calf is gone.
Yeah, so like, but if I was like in the house and like I heard a noise, I would just kind of act suspicious, and he would pick up. I'd be like, "What is that?
Right?
Did you hear that?" And like he switches on fast because like I have had that happen before, right? In like in an old house that I was at, it was in kind of a sketchy neighborhood, and I actually had like a temp break in a couple times, but while I was gone, but one time like we heard a noise or whatever, there was a big bang, something outside, and I'm like, "What is that?" And he like got up and he starts like low crawling almost like a panther.
Yeah.
And like when it's dark in the house and he's all black, dude, it is scary. Like I'm like, okay, he's gonna go. And I'm like, go see. And he like ran out there. He's like super confident.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing too, is like genetics in dogs. It's super important, right? It controls so much of what's going on there and why they do things. And there's dogs that just don't have confidence, right? Poor breeding, a lot of things can go on where dogs become super nervy, anxious, all these things, and that's why they do so much testing when they're doing people for sport or people for military and working dogs, police dogs, all that. They go through rigorous testing to test the dog to see what the genetics are, because they can do all the training in the world, but if the genetic baseline isn't there, the dog will fold under pressure. You know what I mean? Just like people too.
So this is like the classic nature versus nurture, right? If you had to assign a percentage, like I'm gonna go get a mutt at the pound to like come stay at my house, not attack my kids, but be a little, you know, skeptical of anybody walking near the property line. What percentage of that do you think is like genetics? I'm either going to get lucky or I'm not. And what percentage do you think is like, okay, this can actually be trained and executed? Is it like 50-50, 90-10? Like, what do you think?
It's for like a dog that's going to be like protective and like have the good confidence, like have everything that you would want to like be a good like protector. It's super, super genetic. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like my dog, with how he is and who he is, he could just have gone to like a family and not done any training, and they just like feed him cookies and hang out with him. And if somebody broke in the house, I guarantee that dog would nuke somebody.
Right.
Like just how he is and how confident he is and his natural kind of curiosities and desires. Like like almost nothing startles him, right?
Yeah.
He can hear a noise, or if he hears fireworks or a gunshot, and he just kind of like, what is that? Like he's like he's like assessing it, right? But then I've seen him when somebody sketchy walks up behind me, and he just kind of like his body language just changes. Like he just knows what his role is. You know what I mean? And that wasn't something that I taught him, right? I taught him specific details within the bite work and within certain things and obedience and control. But everything was in him to do all of this stuff, right? So it's super, super genetic, right? You're not going to take a dog that doesn't have the genetic for it and do like super fancy good training. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
The dog will just fold under pressure. Somebody comes in and they come running at you, that dog's going to tuck tail and run.
Yeah.
You know?
So can you get genetically lucky with mutts, or is it you have to go with a purebred dog?
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you could pick
yeah.
something up at like a kennel or a mixed breed, and it's like the dog's either going to have the potential to be a superstar or not.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
We're not that far removed from the animal kingdom as humans, and we have a real hard time admitting this about humans. Like, hey man, like some people are just genetically
built different,
predispositioned to be, whatever, better athletes, smarter people, entrepreneurs. But like we'll totally admit it in dogs because everything you're saying makes sense. If we swapped out like dog with the group of kids that we know, people would lose their mind. They're like, no, they're all special flowers and they can all achieve anything they want. It's like, no, some people are genetically predisposed to be like high earning, successful salespeople, and some people are going to be like the world's best auto body mechanic, and maybe that doesn't pay as well. I don't know why people freak out about like understanding the same thing about genetics and humans.
Yeah, which is weird because like some people are 7 feet tall and some people are 5'5".
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like you can't deny that there's a huge difference there.
Right. I can deadlift an insane amount of weight for the fact that I don't work out or lift weights. I cannot dunk a basketball because like my legs just aren't built that way. I'm just screwed.
Yeah.
I don't have that vertical power.
Yeah, I cannot run fast. Like I cannot jump very high. Like,
and that's before we gained weight, even when we were kids. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I could just like never, like my top speed's just not good.
Yeah. So if somebody is thinking about, okay, I want to buy a dog for my family, like, you can pick one up at your local pound for $150 in fees and neuter and stuff. Or, I mean, you can spend. Do you mind if I ask you what your dog costs? Like a purebred?
So I think he was like $2,500 or $2,000. Yeah.
So where does it range if you're looking for like a working dog? You either have some property or like my father-in-law owns a ranch. A couple friends of mine moved out to the middle of nowhere, Texas, because they wanted to have a homestead. So, like, what's the range of like quality, well-bred dogs? Is it 500 to 50,000, or what is like a good dog cost?
Yeah, for like typical kind of just like working breed dog, they're gonna be in like 2,000 to 4,000 usually, just for just normal dog. Again, if you want like the trained ones and all that, it's gonna go way up from there.
Right.
But yeah, you're typically not gonna get too many like purebred dogs from the breeder itself for under $1,500, $2,000.
Yeah, there's huge controversy, especially where I grew up in LA, where it's like you cannot get a dog. They're bred, they're puppy mills, it's animal abuse, it's this, and it's like, well, people still buy purebred dogs, so somebody's lying, right? Because like I see a lot of this. What's the argument for or against? Maybe you can make both arguments for and against like breeding dogs and creating. I always try to think of like, where is maybe a viewer like rolling their eyes like these evil people are promoting puppy mills. Can you explain that concept and maybe where that comes from? The good, the bad, the ugly?
Yeah. So when I talk about like breeders, I'm talking about like ethical breeders that are doing pretty like small scale things. They don't have hundreds of dogs that they're just like breeding back to back to back on their cycles, right? They really good breeders. They care for their dogs. They're their own pets. And they take care of those dogs for their entire life, right? They're females. They're going to give them time in between breedings. And like those dogs live like a really, really good life, the people that care for them, right? The argument kind of against breeders is like, oh, like the shelters are so full. Like we need to just adopt all those dogs because like don't buy a dog, just go and adopt one, which you still have to buy it. 99% of the time you're still buying a dog.
Right.
And a lot of those dogs are coming from like people that are breeding, right? Backyard breeders, dogs that have bad genetics, right? So people that are just mixing dogs up and then they have puppies and then the puppies have crazy anxiety or they're aggressive or just have all these weird things and then they fill the shelters, right? Because not many people are getting rid of, like if they're doing okay, they're not getting rid of their really good dog.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like their family, their family pet. Yeah, it's like dogs driving them crazy. But the problem is that the shelters will never be empty, right? These dogs come in from all over the place. There's shelters that import them from other countries too, right? So it's just nonstop.
What?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, because other countries won't put down the dogs, or why do they import?
Yeah, because like so certain big shelters, it's a business too, right? They're in the business of getting dogs in, helping them, trying to find them families, hopefully, right? Doing all the good things. But there's a lot of horror stories out there too, right? Telling them not good backstories that are just lies. This dog was, they have like a big sob story and then they make the people feel, guilty and bad. And they're like, oh, this puppy's so sad. Like, let's get him. Right. But there's a lot of places that they bring in dogs when the dogs start getting low, they bring in more dogs. So it's a thing it's not just they're not just all going to be like, the shelters aren't just going to be empty one day, right?
Right.
And I'm not against shelters. Those people do amazing work. All the people that foster, right? Don't get me wrong. Shelters are a great place because things do happen with dogs and they need places to go and they need to be safe so they're not just out running around, right? But it's how we get better dogs and dogs that can stay in homes is with proper breeding, right? It's the only way that you have solid, that you can tell with, you're going to have what the temperament's going to be like. We know what we can predict, right?
Yeah.
If you get a
put
good
this mic up a little bit,
if you get a good well-bred Rottweiler, you know the traits that it's going to have basically.
Yeah.
And they vary a little bit within that, but again, it's pretty standard along the way, right? You get a cattle dog, they're going to have very specific traits, right? Border Collie, very specific traits.
Are Border Collies the one that have like unlimited energy? Like you have to throw them the Frisbee or they just lose their shit.
So those dogs were bred to herd sheep and cow, right? They're running like miles and miles and miles every single day on a huge
I don't think
ranch.
It'd be an exaggeration to say 100 miles a day. Like
I
think you're about to say like hundreds of miles
exactly.
a day. It's probably true.
Yeah. And those dogs are super well trained and they have the genetic desire to do that, right? Run around, chase things, bite things, right? So then they come here, somebody pulls one from a shelter and they like it because it's cute and they don't really know anything about Border Collies and they live in an apartment and the dog barks at other dogs so they can't take it on a walk because they're afraid that, you know, maybe he's aggressive or something. And then imagine that dog. He's a super athlete. She's a super athlete, whatever the dog is. And they want to run and bite and chase things and be out in nature and smell the fresh air and be with their people, right? And interact. Right. That's a huge part too. And then they're sitting on the couch all day, right? And they're just going crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like being in a prison cell.
I was going to say, it'd be like trying to make LeBron James like a video game player. He would lose his mind.
Yeah. You can only play video games of basketball, right? You can't play the real
you can't play He would lose his mind. He would go crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned that, like, you know, the traits that come in certain dogs. Are there some real stereotypical traits that you could run through with a couple different breeds of like, hey, these dogs are known for this or they're great for this, or, you know, I'm just.
Yeah. So like, you know, like we were talking about the Border Collie, it's going to be high energy. They're going to want to run. They're really fast. Yeah. Right? And they're very like hyper focused. If you ever play like fetch with a Border Collie, they'll like drop it and then they're super intense. They just stare at you. Right.
Right.
Or sometimes if you have kids, they'll try to like herd them or they'll nip at them. Right. Same with like healers. Right. They're meant for going around and they nip at the cows or the cattle and they move them and push them. So they have those traits, right? You get a good Rottweiler, they're going to be confident, but they're going to have a good temperament, be good with the family, with the kids. And what else? What's another?
What about like big, like the dogs that they make all the movies about, like, you know, golden retrievers and stuff. Like they're so beautiful and they're flowy and they're good looking, but it's like, I don't know. I met a lot of dumb dogs. Like to me, it's like the better looking the dog, the dumber it is. I don't know why I have that in my mind. That's probably totally false. Yeah. But I just think of like golden retrievers. I'm like, yeah, you can hear when I have like a cellophane wrapper and I'm opening a thing of cheese, but like I call your name, you're just like, oh.
There's some. So there's levels to everything, right?
Right.
And there are some really nice working golden retrievers, right? What's their job was to go and like for waterfowl and stuff like that, right? Go and retrieve birds, bird hunting. They want to hang out with you and then you shoot a duck and they want to dive in the freezing cold water and go get it and bring it back to you and then sit and wait for the next one. Yeah. You know? And like, that's what they want to do, but they're also just really great, loving family dogs. And so a lot of them have gone kind of more into that role, right? Most of them aren't hunting, like, you know, in hunting communities and stuff, obviously, but that's a smaller community than just overall people with their family dogs. Right. And like, you know, they're great, right? It's a good solid breed, you know, with like a well-bred golden retriever, it's just going to be like, just love everybody, right? It sees strangers and it's, you know, it's not the dog that you want that's going to be sitting at the foot of your bed when somebody breaks in, right? Yeah. They're going to go up and lick their paw. Oh my gosh, awesome, time to play. Exactly, yeah. So, you know, that's kind of a characteristic that would be specific to them, is just being like super friendly and also, you know, being high energy too.
Right. So if I think of like a series of dogs that'd be like, okay, we're buying a property that has like an acre on it and my kids are going to be out playing in the front yard. And if I don't have a tall gate, obviously I'm speaking specifically to me, I'm being very selfish here. Like, what breeds would you recommend for like a protector dog who also, you know, if you come over for jiu-jitsu in the garage and we're rolling around, he's not going to accidentally like go for your throat. Like what breeds would you pick that are like medium protectors? I don't know what I'm looking for. Like,
so like it can be tough, right? So if you have a dog that you want that would actually like protect you and the family, that dog's not really going to like watching you, like me and you roll, right? If I had like my dog's like super good, he's obedient, he's super friendly, he would meet you. But if me and you started rolling, he would want to step in, right? Yeah. And like I could make him like not, but he would just be uncomfortable that whole time.
Yeah,
right?
he'd be freaking out.
Yeah, so I mean, I could just put him in the other room and he would be totally fine.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I mean, for something like that where it's kind of, you know, you kind of want like a multitude of things. There's a few breeds. It kind of depends on. Are you talking about here in town?
Yeah. And that's another thing, right? Because it's hot as shit. In where we used to live in Valencia, North Hollywood, where we have a little house that we stay with my mother-in-law. Here in like everywhere that we would be, it's, you know, they're going to be an outdoor dog, and there's going to be multiple days over 100 degrees. Yeah. So that obviously comes into play. Yeah.
It's tough if like because there's different types, right? There's dogs that are like livestock guardian dogs that are like legit, just like farm and like when you're out in the country and they're just going to guard livestock, and like those dogs don't really want to hang out with us too much, right? They like their owners and they're cool with them, and that's fine, but they just want to sit out and protect the sheep and like do their thing, right? And they can just sit out there all day and they don't got to come inside, right? These are just tough animals that just hang out there. They'll fight wolves. They'll fight, you know what I mean? So
any dog that would be willing to fight a wolf is a complete badass in my mind.
Yeah,
by the way.
Dude.
Okay.
Yeah, they kill wolves like fast. It's crazy, man. There's like you can watch videos of like Kangles, like Turkish Kangles, like protecting their flock, and it's insane.
Turkish Kangles.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, this is where you got to go to YouTube and interject a Turkish Kangle killing a wolf. That's bonkers. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I don't think I want those, but okay.
Yeah, but yeah, it's tough out here because it's so hot. Just like leaving a dog, it's just gonna want to like hang out outside.
Yeah.
But I mean, a good German Shepherd. The problem with the shepherds is like there's just been so much health issues, you know, within the breeding, and a lot of that was because of, right, like I said, there's the ethical breeders, and then there are the backyard breeders, right? So when dogs get super popular, like through a movie, like we were talking about earlier, Dobermans, you know, all these breeds kind of blow up and they get super popular. And people that don't really know anything about the breed, they get all these dogs, and then people will start backyard breeding them because they can make money because they will sell because they're really popular, right? This is starting to happen with the Malinois now.
Got it. And then
to be fair about the Turkish Kangal, its head is 3 times the size of a human head.
Yeah, they're gigantic. They're like a lion.
That is a giant dog.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, I'm gonna be spending all night with my son watching Turkish Kangal versus wolf videos. But sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, I've read this about German Shepherds. I don't know why I read this, but I saw some article where it's like they've been inbred so many times. They have like hip issues.
Hip dysplasia, elbow issues, back issues. Like,
that sucks.
Yeah, there's just been so much that goes on, right? Because, again, backyard breeders take the breed and then they just breed. They just want to get the puppies out, right? More puppy mill style. So they're not looking for health, right? A good breeder, they're doing health tests. They're doing eye tests.
What are health tests for a dog?
So they check the hips. They do like bone scans and do all kinds of things like that. X-rays, see how they're
before
developing.
they breed them, or like
with the puppies? For sure. Yeah. So if you have like a prospect that you want to breed, you have a male dog.
Wait,
and a female
prospect? This is like a motorcycle gang?
No, like a breeding prospect. You know what I mean? You might pull it into your breeding program and use that dog. Maybe you see somebody else's dog that you like, and they're like another breeder or something, and like breeders will collaborate. That's how they get like different lines and stuff in there. And not just like their own dogs, right?
So
people will mix and match.
If I had like a great Rottweiler, you know, I would call Betsy and Reno and just be like, Mary, call Mary and Reno and be like, hey man, can we get some DNA tests, some scans, some STD tests, and then we're gonna breed some dogs. Like, I mean, it really goes this deep before people can breed them.
Good. So good breeders. Yeah. So if you want to have things, you know, noted and health checked and certified and go through all the things. I don't do breeding, so I don't know all the very specific details of that. Right. But they do specific health tests, eye tests, do all these things, vet checks, blood work, all kinds of things that they do, right? To test the dog and make sure that dog's good before they put it into the breeding program and have puppies, right? So,
got it.
You know, again, we are like shaping the genetics of like a dog that we want in the future. That's how all breeds were made. Originally, all dogs were wolves, right? Yeah. And then we slowly branched off, and then we have Chihuahuas, right? So we can go so far with all of this, and because of how,
I guess I never thought about this, but a Chihuahua breed is a ancient descendant of a wolf breed.
Yeah.
And they just kept taking smaller and smaller and smaller and then interbreeding them until they got smaller. I don't know why. I mean, that makes total sense to me, but I had obviously never thought deeply about where Chihuahuas come from. But that's wicked that like a Belgium, what's a really big, the one, they almost look like a Mastiff, but they have giant heads. Like same thing that Chris was saying, like heads like 3 times as big
like
as
a Cane Corso or something.
Yeah, Cane
With
Corso.
the little ears. It looks like a giant pit bull.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
exactly. My friend has 2 of those, and they're 120 pounds each. They're just huge. He does jiu-jitsu with them, and it's really funny because he lost a leg in a motorcycle accident, so he always jokes that the dog took his leg. But those dogs are huge, so it's funny that and a Chihuahua came from the same breed or from the same common ancestor.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how long dogs have been like professionally bred? Is there like a record of this going back to medieval times or something?
Oh,
of,
I don't know about like
dog
professionally, but I think we've been interacting. I mean, I'm sure we've interacted with wolves for a long time. But they say like I think it's somewhere around like 20,000 years we've been like specifically like breeding like more domestic dogs.
20,000 years.
I think so.
Oh,
yeah,
bonkers.
Like yeah, I've heard different things. Originally, I've heard it was like 13,000 years ago, and then I've read other things where they're like, no, we think it's like 18,000, and then it just kind of moves around a little bit. So I don't know exactly when it was, but yeah, for thousands and thousands of years we've been selectively breeding dogs to do jobs, to different tasks.
All right, so back to the outdoor dogs that can stand the heat. And what am I looking for? A Rottweiler, a pit bull, like what?
No, definitely not Rottweiler. Yeah,
they don't
all
like
black
the heat.
fur. Yeah, same with for a dog that's gonna like hang out and protect. The Cane Corso is really good, right? They're kind of like they have a lot of similar traits of the Rottweiler, right? They're good with family. They can be very loving and just like big babies.
Mm-hmm.
But then they have that side that's like protector. The thing with the Cane Corsos that's slightly different is like their confidence scale kind of comes in differently, at least from what I've seen, right? So they early on they can be kind of like skittish, like big babies, right? And they're like giant dogs, but like it's like they don't know that they're giant yet, right?
Yeah, they're like toddlers.
And then around like a year and a half, 2 years old, something changes and they get all their testosterone, whatever happens in their brain, and they're like, oh, I'm a monster.
Yeah,
right.
Their balls drop,
and then,
they realize they're
and
huge.
they're like, it's go time, and they learn their place and how powerful they are. They really kind of find out who they are at that point. So what can happen is if people have like one that is just kind of a big baby, they don't really take it too serious, and it starts having some behavioral issues, and then all of a sudden one day it's like, hey, I'm a man, and now they have all these issues and they can't deal with them because some of them get above 200 pounds. They can get huge. And that's a lot of dog. And if it's pissed off or if it doesn't want to do something, you're not going to make it. So you got to be very careful and make sure that, with dogs like these, that you're responsible and you're getting training. If anything comes up where it seems like weird, you're unsure, like reach out. People will, evaluate dogs and do stuff, help you a lot of the time, or at least answer questions for you so that you know what path to take with it. But those dogs can be super great family dogs. That's a dog that you definitely wouldn't want like a stranger coming over and them not knowing that person and them trying to like, wrestle with you. Like I've had people I've known people that have had them as family dogs and everything is cool. And the family comes over and the dog loves everybody. And then, one of the family members is playing with one of the kids and kind of tossing it around playing, and the dog thinks something's wrong and the dog just nukes the family member. And it's just like,
Uncle Ted gets his leg just chopped because he was throwing the baby up in the air.
Yeah, and at that point, it's just been the family dog. So they don't have control over that dog in that situation. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you have a dog that's high drive like that and they're in a fight, like, it's a lot of work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You see police officers, they're trying to get a hold of their dogs and do stuff. Same with, military, sport dogs, all this stuff. It's hard to control dogs when they're that aroused and crazy and they're really, they're fighting somebody. So if you've done nothing at all and then that experience happens and everybody's just screaming and freaking out, like, it's kind of just up to the dog when he wants to stop.
Yeah, especially if he's 200 pounds, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about getting a dog, whether it's from a reputable breeder or you are gonna go save one from a shelter, what's the time investment to get a dog? Like, I'm not talking about like competition, right? Because you could do 8 hours a day if you're trying to compete. But if you're just trying to get the dog responsible, not going to bite the wrong person, cool around the family, shits in the right pot of the yard.
Yeah.
How much training a day is it? Is it like 10 minutes, 2 hours? Like,
So,
what does it take to train a good dog if you start early and you do it right?
So it all kind of depends, right? Dogs are different levels, right? There's dogs that are super easy and just kind of fall into being a family dog. This is what most people, I think, view like a dog as, right? Just like a golden retriever. Comes in, you potty train him, and then maybe you teach him to come or whatever, and maybe to sit and stuff like that. And then you're good for like life. The dog just listens, right? He's just like nice and listens. And then there's other dogs that just aren't going to be like that. Like they're going to be a little more towards, maybe they're sketchy. Maybe they want to bark at other dogs, and you have to know how to like handle that and work through that. And that's going to take some more training, and you actually need kind of a full training program and some more like formal obedience so that you can have control over that dog, right? You get a dog that's super high energy border collie or a pit bull, and these dogs can be a lot. Right? It's just so much energy, and then maybe a little problem comes up, and it's like these things just spiral. So
Is a little problem like he tears up the couch or like he bites off a finger? Like what would you define as like a little problem?
No little problems like they start barking at people, or they just little things come up, or he's starting to chew on furniture. Yeah, just little things like that. Yeah, I would consider biting a finger off a pretty major problem at that point.
Cool. So like if you had, like if you came in to consult a family and they're like, hey man, our dog's super well behaved, well potty trained, doesn't have anxiety because we walk him a lot, he's not tearing stuff up, but man, he just sees the mailman and he goes ape shit for half an hour. Can't control himself. He's in like that fight or flight mode. Yeah. How much training goes into like adjusting, let's just say, one major behavior? Is it like, hey, you can come as a professional trainer and knock it out in 2 sessions and you're like, sweet, pay me my money? Or is it like, hey, dude, I'll be here every day for half an hour for the next 6 months?
Yeah. So it really depends on what's really going on and why the behavior's happening, right? This is a huge thing, right? Why the dog is doing something plays in, because it can be doing the same thing. 2 different dogs can be doing the same thing, but if why they're doing it is different, how you handle it's going to be completely different. One might be, I do a session and the dog has a different understanding now, and they're like, okay, we're cool. Like, I don't need to do that. And then everything's fine. One, they might have to do like a full training program where I take the dog for like 4 to 6 weeks, right? So for like major...
So wait. So like barking at the mailman might be a one session, hey, we fixed the behavior, it's cool, I just kind of like... just a quick attitude readjustment, but oh no, this dog barking at the mailman, give him to me for 6 weeks. I really got to fix this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So
holy shit.
Let me break it down a little bit and be more specific. So the one dog, let's say maybe they are a golden retriever, right? And they see the mailman, and for whatever reason, they saw it one day and started barking at it, and they realized that the people in the house were like, oh, like what's going on? And maybe a little commotion started, or maybe the mailman was kind of like, oh, like what's that dog doing? And so the dog like notices something change, and he's like, oh, okay, like I bark, and the mailman comes and then I bark. So that one, it's fairly simple, right? The dog doesn't want to go and kill the mailman. The dog is just kind of notices something, and nobody has control enough to just tell the dog to not bark in that moment. Right? Sometimes dogs just need to be told like, hey, stop doing that. And then they're like, oh, okay. Like, okay. Like, and they won't even fight you on it. Some dogs will fight you on it, but some dogs are just like, oh, okay. All you had to do is tell me that not to do that. Right? So that's one dog, right? Same thing. Another dog, you have a Malinois, a high drive Malinois, and they see somebody and they're like a little bit nervy, a little bit scared, and they think that person's coming to attack the house. And so they're going ballistic, and they're running around, and they're banging on the window, and they're barking at the guy. And for them, if you open the door and let him out, maybe that dog would go and actually bite the guy for real, right? You see how that's totally 2 different things. They're doing the same thing, but between the golden retriever and the Malinois, what's going on in their head is totally different. So how we have to address that, if you have a dog that actually wants to go and bite people, it's going to take a lot of work to get a proper foundation, because one of the most common mistakes that happens in dog training is there's a behavioral problem or something that's going on, and people try to tackle it directly, right? The dog's barking at people. They'll take the dog and put the dog in that situation and punish them, or try to do counter conditioning, or all these techniques. And there's so much foundational work that has to go in beforehand. I have to have proper communication with this dog. I have to have a solid relationship and trust with this dog, right? I'm TWC certified through this guy, Ivan Balabanoff.
What is TWC?
We can dive into that, because it's its whole thing, right? But how we do things is it's all focused on the emotion of the dog and like what they're thinking and how they're feeling in the moment, right? So it's less about the behavior. I don't care if a dog can sit or lay down. I care if they understand that we like each other and that we have a good relationship, and there's a reason that I'm asking them to do this thing, right? If we're out and about in public and I ask you to lay down and wait there, it's because that allows us to be out in public and do those things. If you were to get up or bark at people or try to bite somebody, we can no longer do those things, and you don't have that freedom, right? So it's really important to have this understanding, relationship, trust, and confidence in each other that we have to perform certain tasks when we're together. And it becomes this thing where it's almost like a game between us, right? We go out in the world together. It's us versus everybody else. And to have that level of like control and relationship, it takes time, right? So if you have a big problem, like the dog that wants to go and bite people, I have to take that dog in. I have to, for one, make sure the dog's not going to bite me, because maybe some dogs do, right? And I have to suit up and show up and see if the dog will actually bite me. Part of my training program is actually fully evaluating dogs. A lot of people that deal with aggression, they just have the dog either where they can't get to them, or they'll have a muzzle on the dog when they're around them, but they never actually test to see if the dog would bite them if the dog was allowed to, and like in that scenario where they're showing like they would, right? So I go through full evaluations with my clients.
So wait, dude, like you might show up on day one with like the arm thing and the
full suit. I have a full suit. Yeah,
you have a full suit.
Yeah.
So you'll just walk up and open the door and see if the dog will actually attack you.
No, not in that sense. Like
Right.
I'll look at the dog, evaluate. We'll talk about what the problems are. But if the people are like, hey, this dog is like pulling us down the road and he's like going crazy and I think he's gonna bite somebody. Okay, well let's bring him out and I have to see right what he's gonna do. Yeah. So for my clients, I'll fully evaluate the dog so we know for sure what's gonna happen, because some dogs won't, and then we're dealing with a different problem.
So some dogs will just like bum rush you, but then stop and not
attack. Yeah.
How many times have you been bitten in a suit?
Quite a few times, because I've done like some sport stuff with it too.
Yeah.
With like some serious dogs, and it's a big difference when we're doing like full on bite. Most like pet dogs, they don't really know how to bite, right? And they're kind of figuring it out, and especially if they've never bitten a person,
right?
They're kind of like nipping and coming in. Some dogs have it, and like they'll go after you, but most regular pet dogs, if they will bite you, usually they're just kind of like tagging you, trying to take like a chunk and
right.
feel.
They're not trying to rip like flesh off.
Yeah, and they're just kind of like trying to make you go away. A lot of the times, they might be nervous, but there are dogs out there that are fully confident. They've never been trained a day in their life, but you walk up and they're like ready to fully go to war with you, right? And again, this is why we have to have these evaluations so we know, because how we deal with that dog and how we deal with this dog is going to be totally different.
Yeah. Wow, man, it's like so much more complex than I would think. Just like train the dog to sit, train the dog to chill.
Yeah.
Like I remember one time I was in like Ventura. And like this guy was just showing off. Like, fuck this guy. He had this awesome dog. If I remember correctly, I think it was a golden retriever. And he walked out of a donut shop. It's like a beach community or whatever. Yeah. He walked out of a donut shop with his coffee and 2 donuts. He ate 1 donut. He put his coffee on the ground with the donut. And he told the dog to sit. And then he went in the grocery store. Like, no leash, nothing. Yeah. Just went in the grocery store. Like, came back out with like a bag of groceries, and then the reward was he let the dog eat the donut, picked up his coffee, and they just walked off. Like, no leash, anything. I'm like, this is the craziest shit I've ever seen. I didn't know you could train a dog that well. And I was like, you see it for sure. Like, this is a normal thing. Every dog I've ever had is like either crazy or mildly well-trained.
that is like a high level of control. You know what I mean? But you can't get there with a lot of dogs.
That's bonkers. So what's like your favorite type of training? Obviously, people can call you to fix the problems and fix the biting and the tearing up the furniture. But like, do you have a specialty, or do you have something that you're like, man, this is the thing that like really lights me up when I get to go do dog training?
I enjoy the like behavioral problem cases. Like, now, don't get me wrong, it is nice every once in a while to have the golden retriever that I just need to train obedience to, and he's not trying to chew my arm off, because there is a lot of stress and stuff that goes with it. You have to be careful. You got to protect yourself. These dogs can hurt you. They bite your hand. It breaks your hand and your hand's mangled, you know what I mean? And then I'm out of work. So you got to be really smart.
Like every dog could like do something that takes you out of the business, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That'd be fucked up. Okay, that's not gonna happen. Jiu-jitsu is way harder when you're missing a hand, unless you're
exactly.
All right, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. So so the stuff that you do like to do is
the behavioral modification. So I like dealing with the kind of more problem dogs that maybe have been to other trainers multiple times and working with those. Going through the TWC program, I learned like at a completely different level of what's going on in most of dog training, right? What Ivan teaches, so in the sport that we do, Ivan is a 2-time world champion and like a 15-time national champion, and he's still competing. He's been breeding Malinois since 89, around there. I believe it was like 89 when he started breeding, and been doing dog sport in that since then. He's originally from Bulgaria, came over here. He's done training seeing eye dogs. He's done pet dogs, done everything. And then
so he's won this IGP thing multiple times.
Yeah, the world champion multiple times. And this is, I mean, for the people that are in the sport, this is highly competitive. These people are professional athletes and competitors. This is crazy. They're traveling, they're doing training all the time. These people, a lot of time, it's their full-time gig.
So this guy Ivan is like the Navy SEAL of dog training.
Yeah, he's like the Jean-Jacques. He's like the grandmaster,
okay,
right, of training. Yeah, and like when you talk to him, like you understand. And everybody says this. Everybody that goes to like a seminar or meets him for the first time or goes through the program, they're like, it's like, for one, I've never heard anything like it. Even other top trainers that are really popular, people like Michael Ellis, they've said like, yeah, like, and they're friends and stuff like that, and they're like, yeah, like he's just different. He's on another level, right? His passion for it is unmatched. I've never seen anybody that still to this day, if you talk to him, he will just go so deep on like something so small, like within dog training. And he's still just constantly learning. He's always looking at studies. He doesn't like binge watch TV shows and stuff like that. He looks at dog studies and behavioral studies and all these different areas and scientific, and he's just obsessed. Like wicked smart. Yeah, he's super obsessed and just like so driven, and it's insane, and you just like see it. And so the path that he's gone and the techniques and the methodologies and stuff that he's created are like completely revolutionary to what else is going on in dog training. Like it's not even comparable. It's insane. And there's been people that go through his program that have been professional dog trainers for 30 years. And they're like, I had no idea that like this thing existed.
So like,
I've been doing this for so long.
What does his program consist of? Is it like you go for a day, you go for a year?
No. Yeah. So it's an intensive, like 2-month-long process where you're doing stuff online. There's an online program that you go through, as well as like doing like monthly, every 2 months, like Zoom calls where you're in like a classroom with him and everybody else, and you're discussing what you went over in the other modules as you go through it. And he just breaks it. He's just such a good teacher and breaks it down so well throughout the process. And then you get to the end and it all kind of comes together. Mm-hmm. And at the end of that, like 2 months, you have to fly out to Florida where he's at and his like base there, and do a written test. And it's tough, man. You got to be on your game. I had to go through the online course 3-4 times and go through all the study stuff and go through the Zoom calls and listen to everything over and over again and try to get it. And when I went to take the test, like, you know, I spent a lot of time. I was like the last one, I think, that finished it. You know, I was super nervous because I'm not good at like written tests. Like I like hands-on things, right?
Yeah.
And so,
and then was there like a practical where he had you work with the dog?
Yeah. So that came afterward. There would be a practical, and you would send in like videos of you doing certain specific tasks that he would ask you. Right.
Because he can't just have like a cadre of fucked up dogs at his place. That would be kind of messed up.
Yeah.
You're like, we're not solving this dog's problem until my student comes in.
Yeah. No, it's not like that. Yeah. So you kind of do that part, and then, but yeah, it's a, and you only do that part if you pass the written part.
Yeah.
So
what's the most common thing you get called for, and then what's the craziest case you've had?
Most common stuff is just like leash pulling, my dog barks, reactivity kind of stuff, and people kind of want to know like what's going on, because again, there can be so many reasons. A dog can just be excited and be barking at a dog, or they can want to go and kill that dog because they don't like dogs they don't know.
Yeah.
You know? So there's a big range, but a lot of it is just kind of average pet dogs that maybe have some issues, maybe not, just want, you know, some people just want obedience, right? They just want a dog that's fully trained, right? As I said, I have a program where I can take the dog for 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes longer, depending if there's a huge issue, right? But I always do an evaluation first. I see the dog, and then I can let them know. Maybe we just need to do 1 session. Maybe we need to do like 5 sessions. Or maybe this is a problem, or maybe what you want, if you want all of that control and off-leash control and be able to call the dog when you're out at a park or walk around with them off-leash, these things require more of the program, right? Because
Yeah.
again, I'm just teaching the dog this entire foundation, and then the behaviors are super easy after that point. And then
Right.
I just transfer everything to the client, right? And we do multiple sessions teaching them because they have to know. But I keep it super simple, right? People
Right.
don't want to be dog trainers.
Right.
They just
No.
want to. They
I
just
just want a dog.
Yeah, they just want to know how to talk to their dog, communicate with it, and have some tips on how to have a better relationship and how they can live in the world with their dog. My whole goal is getting people and their dogs to be able to live free lives doing whatever they want. If they want to go on hikes and let the dog run off leash, but they know that if there's other dogs coming, they can call their dog and have it lay down in
Yeah.
the shade over here while the other dog goes by, they have that ability.
Yeah,
you know?
that would be the exact outcome of what I would want with a dog. Like, I can walk without tugging on leashes or anything like that.
yeah.
Let him off
House
the
manners.
leash. Yeah, let him off the leash when we're, running to Mount Charleston.
Yeah.
And if somebody comes along when they got kids and they're going to freak out, I can have my dog just lay on the side of the road and chill.
Yeah.
Um,
and also, too, something to add to that is, like, I have a very big emphasis on having real control in the real world, right? Because you can go through training programs that just teach obedience. You could do it like a bunch of different group classes and do stuff, and they'll, teach the dog how to sit and get a piece of food. And yes, you are teaching the dog to do these behaviors, but anytime that dog is overly excited, that style of training will eventually fail to the point where when the dog gets so excited, the dog just like isn't going to listen anymore. Right.
Yeah.
Just because of the process that you went through and how the dog understands those things. Right.
Yeah.
I like to get a dog to where we have real control and I can call the dog back to me, even if they're chasing a rabbit. Right. Mm-hmm. That's like really high up. Right. They're in full prey drive and they're just like genetically spiked to go and do that thing. But I can step in and say, hey, no, come here. And they're like, oh, and they just whoop, turn around and come back. Right.
Yeah. And do you have to beat dogs to do that,
No,
or is it just an emotional safety
no,
thing?
No. Yeah, definitely not. Definitely don't
Okay.
abuse dogs.
Okay.
It's the more you understand about real dog training, especially the way that Ivan teaches it, it's so much more about finesse and doing things properly than about brute force.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about that at all. Yes, we do use aversives in specific areas in training, different tools, prong collars, e-collars. We can talk about some of that stuff too if you want. But it's when you get good at certain things, I can choose to do it with no tools. I can choose to do it with tools, and there's different benefits to doing each thing, right? And for specific scenarios, I'm going to be doing things different ways, right? But it's all about having that understanding and trust. Again, my biggest focus and what we try to emphasize is the emotion of the dog. So if you're just using force and you're just trying to make this dog into a little soldier, they're going to look like shit. They're not going to be happy, right? Dogs will show you how they feel, right? We have to be able to look at their body language and see, yeah, okay, their ears are down, their head's low, their tail's tucked, and they look like they're being careful, right? Like, that's not a good look. I don't care if the dog listens to you and lays down. If they look like that, I'm not about it, right? The training isn't there. It's not good. I want a dog that's happy, upbeat, excited to be with me. If I tell him to lay down, he lays down and he's like, okay, what's next? What are we going to do? Where are we going to go? But I still have that authority, right? So it's a fine line of like us being happy all the time, but still having the respect between each other of like, if I tell you not to go and run and chase that rabbit, you have to come back, right?
Yeah.
So,
It's funny because my dog Jack, he's a mutt. We got him, like, crazy story, but if I'm around, he's super passive, just like, it's cool, whatever. And then my wife was like, yeah, dude, your dog's fucking crazy. I'm like, what are you talking about? My dog's crazy. My dog's the most chill dog ever.
For you,
For me. And then she sent me a video. Our Gabriel, our son, had just been born. And, like, he was really good with the baby right away. And she sent me a video of somebody coming to the door, and he was up on his hind legs, like, ready to break down this steel door. He was losing his fucking shit.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't see you abuse the dog. But when you're here, he's just, like, super beta bitch. The second you leave, if anybody else is around, he's, like, straight into family protector mode, which I was happy about. But I was like, I think I missed some of the training steps with my dog because I wasn't home. And, like, at the time, my roommate was, like, doing most of the training, I'm embarrassed to admit. So I kind of fucked up a lot of that.
Yeah.
So no judgment when you come over and help us with our dog. But that's kind of the common case. What's the craziest thing you've seen? Or, like, you got called on the scene and it's like, dude, I have to take the dog immediately for 6 weeks. Has there been anything nutso like that?
Yeah, so one of the kind of the most like surprising ones where it was early on, right? Made a lot of mistakes early on. You learn a lot, with experience. Experience is so important. Yeah. And so I was meeting with this family. They had called me and they had said, it was a younger guy, and he said, my older brother had this dog. It was a Malinois, and he was big. He was like 120 pounds, which is just huge for a Malinois. Like they're normally like 60, 70, maybe 80 pounds in a big male, Yeah. But once they get up to there, it's just like, it's crazy. It's not like typical breed standard, right?
It's uncontrollable at 120 pound crazy
and so,
army dog.
So he was like, come over. The dog just like, it seems like he's like uneasy sometimes, and like if I'm giving him treats, like he'll just kind of growl at me. I'm like, okay, is he like bit anybody? They're like, no, he's fine. Like he just hangs out in the backyard, and like he's super friendly with us and hangs out with us like most of the time. But just every once in a while, like if I'm trying to play with him or give him like some food, he kind of like growls at me, and it like freaks me out a little bit. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go to the house, meet up with them. He's like, he meets me out front. He's like, okay, waiting for my brother to get here because he knows the dog better, so he'll kind of like handle him while we do this. And I'm like, okay. And back then, I didn't have any protection equipment. I just had like a tug toy and like a slip leash. And I'm like, okay, so, walking in, I'm like, worst case scenario, the dog like, gets a little crazy, and I'll just like throw the tug and maybe he'll get it, or I'll just like give it to him. And so the guy gets there. He's like, okay, my brother's going to go and get him ready. I'm like, okay, just make sure that the dog's on the leash when your brother goes back there before we go back there, just so your brother can hold him so I can see like what the dog's going to do. He's like, okay. He's like, okay, we're ready. The brother says like they're ready. We open the gate. We go into the backyard. The dog's not on leash. And this dog runs up to me, and I'm like, hey, buddy. I'm like, just, being cool. And he just runs up, and he just jumps up and like puts his paws on it, and it gets his head is like right in front of my face, and I'm like, hey buddy. I'm like, no, and I just kind of like lightly brush him off because I'm trying to be like super chill. I'm like, hey, somebody put a leash on this dog because you're telling me that he's growling and stuff. And I push him off, and as soon as I push him off, he's like barking in my face, and I'm like, oh, this sucks. Like this wasn't a good scenario to get myself into. I'm trying to like give him the tug. He doesn't want anything to do with it. He's like,
he's focused
clacking.
on you.
Yeah, he's clacking about it. Luckily, the dog didn't really either know how to bite people right, or he wasn't really committed to it, because he was like jumping up and pushing, and he's kind of like pushing me and bite. He didn't just like go and bite. Like if he just wanted to jump up and bite my face, like I'd have been pretty in a bad position at that time.
Yeah.
So I get my slip leash out, and I'm trying to like lasso this dog, right? That's like jumping in the air and biting at me, biting at my hands. And I get it halfway on, and then he shakes and it's off again. And meanwhile, the people are just like terrified because they've never seen the dog like go this crazy on somebody apparently.
Right.
And so they're not helping. They're just like staying away. So I'm like, just like, trying to like fight this dog off of me and like not get bit. And I end up getting the slip lead on him, and I just like hold him away from me. Right. So that he's like stops biting. And then I like stop, and I give him like his like loose leash. 'Cause you want the dogs to feel like if you're just holding tension on the leash, they're tense too, right? So I just try to give him some slack, and I'm like, all right, buddy, like, are we cool? And I like take a couple steps, and then he just side eyes me and then jumps back up at me again. And I'm like, whoa, I like pull him back off of me, and I like bring him over to the guy. I'm like, hold on to this leash. I'm like, don't let that leash go, And then I was able to back up, and the dog like kind of had got my arm a little bit, but again, he wasn't like knew how to bite and was going to shred me. So I got super lucky. Yeah. I would have been just tore to pieces. You know what I mean? If he had bad intentions. So I learned a lot that day on making sure before you go anywhere, you have visual that the dog is secure and everything's set up, and the people that you're dealing with are handling it properly, because, most people just don't know. They're not doing it on purpose. They just like don't think it's a big deal or whatever. Right, and you have them on leash, and you tell them to hold the leash, and then all of a sudden they're walking closer, and the dog's coming up, and now the dog's starting to get aggressive, and you're like, hey, like go backwards, please. They just kind of freeze up because they just don't know what to do in the moment. Like I don't blame them, but it's like I just have to be mindful and just protect myself at all times and set up things in a way that I know that I'm going to be safe.
Yeah, so. I don't know shit about anything with training dogs. I just know bad behavior that I've observed. And this happens at like Runyon Canyon in Los Angeles is like famous for like all these Instagram influencers here and like hot girls that want to be seen, but you're not allowed to look at them. It's crazy. They go walking or running Runyon Canyon with their dogs. And I've seen so many times people with those dog, like the extend the leash things.
Yeah.
And then another person will like pick up their dog and try to hold it. So now the dog on the extended leash is all getting overly excited and try to jump up on the dog.
Like, say hi
and
to
then,
them.
Yeah. And now the owners are getting in a fight. So now the dogs are getting more ramped up.
Yeah.
And then somebody's trying to pull a dog back. Then a third dog comes in on a leash and this person's yanking on the leash. And now they're just raising the tension. And I'm like, if you just put the dog on the ground and let them sniff each other's ass and work it out, and you actually control your dog, like everything will be okay. But it's like in that heat of the moment, everybody loses their mind. I've seen that so many times hiking around Runyon Canyon. So give me like the top 5, top 3, whatever, worst things that people do with their dogs. Like, oh, dude, you see somebody with their dog and you're just like, you're fucking up, man. Like you just want to step in and correct them.
So there's a lot of things. So how I did things before I went through the TWC program was like drastically different from how I did things afterwards, right? It changed so many things for me. And there's a lot of like myths and there's a lot of things that dog trainers will actually tell people to do that I don't agree with and that I no longer do, right? So a popular thing right now is like always trying to keep the dogs calm, right? If you have to try to, all issues are caused by the dog being overly excited. So instead of getting control when they're excited, they say, let's not let them get excited, right? So
that's not practical, right?
Right? Yeah, dogs are animals. They're, they want to be excited. They want to run around. They want to get excited.
I'm an
when it's
animal.
time
I
to
get
go for a
excited
walk.
sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, so I see people doing this and these dogs are, again, you just look at the dog. The dog will tell you, right? If they're going through, and you don't even have to use force on a dog for them to be just completely shut down and suppressed, right? If you just make a dog lay on a place bed for 5 hours while you're like walking around your house instead of just letting them like roam and like lay down because you don't have the control to make them not like go crazy or do whatever it is they're doing instead of laying on the place bed. Like that's not the training that I want to be doing. And it's super popular right now, right?
Just like put them in place.
Just put them on a place bed and have them there. If somebody's going to come to your door and knock on the door and the dogs go crazy and jump on people at the door, make them stay on the place bed instead of getting control and they can actually meet people and just be a social dog.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like what did our great grandparents do? They didn't have place beds that they were putting dogs on.
Yeah, they're
you know what I mean? Yeah, they had dogs and if they were
I want a
jumping
dog,
up,
not a mantle ornament.
yeah, it's like you get a stuffed animal to sit over there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's one thing. It's just there's so much about like just keeping dogs calm, and it's like no, I want my dog to be happy, excited, live a full life, be fulfilled, have a purpose. Going to dog parks is a big one. Like all dog trainers talk about this because what ends up happening is it's other owners that are similar to you that don't really have control, don't really know how their dog is socially. And then they go and on a busy night, there's 30 dogs, 20 dogs, maybe more sometimes depending on how big the dog park is. And nobody has control. And all these dogs are running around and they're trying to figure out some pack hierarchy because there's 40 dogs running around. You know what I mean? And then you have a dog that like really does have like aggression issues and he's like just runs over and sees a dog he doesn't like and just starts full on it. Like dogs get attacked. People lose fingers. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens. So I always tell people just do, like stay away from dog parks, socialize them with your friends that you know that have dogs. Do it, especially if you don't have really good control over your dog and you don't know, kind of how to do things. Make sure you're doing it with just like one dog at a time at first. You don't want a group of dogs to pop off and start fighting, and then now you guys are trying to pull dogs apart.
No,
it's
not.
It's
I'll
not
just
good.
I'll let them fight to the death. I'm not losing a finger. It's like Thunderdome.
It's not good.
So like if you're going to avoid dog parks, things like that, is it nicer for the dog to get dogs in pairs? Because this is something I've been thinking about. Like, so Chris, our audio guy, his parents always had dogs, and they always bought them in pairs.
Yeah. Like in the home, like family dogs.
Yeah, family dogs in the home. Is that a good thing? Are dogs more loners, or are they all pack animals where they like to have?
Some dogs are different. Some dogs are like don't really care
Fuck
about another dog. Yeah. But most dogs are very social. They're pack animals, and they enjoy having another like playmate or something that they can kind of keep busy, especially if the owners or parents are doing something else.
Yeah. Do you have a 2-for-1 package, or if I get 2 dogs at the same time, we can work
something out?
Okay.
Yeah, we can work something out.
That's funny. I thinking about this IGP and the different training and stuff. This lady that I used to see at the Pasadena dog park. So we had a little dog that was batshit crazy. Luckily, it was only 15 pounds. This was my ex-wife, and if this dog would have been just a little bit bigger, because I didn't train him for shit.
Yeah.
He was so hyper, so much energy. Like we would go to the dog park twice a day, and this dude would like just school the greyhounds like faster than the greyhounds. And I don't know what he was, but he was fast as fuck. And this one lady at the dog park, you're talking about that madness, right? Like that melee. This one lady had told me how she had this Doberman Pinscher, beautiful dog, like maybe the most gorgeous dog I've ever seen. But the first time her mom came over, the dog had jumped up and like put the paws on the front of her chest and knocked her down and broke her hip and took her mom like out of commission for like 6 months. Not good. And so she committed to like this crazy $10,000 training program, and she had a clicker, and there could be a fucking melee Royal Rumble of dogs going on, and she would click this thing twice, and this dude would just sit down like in like guard stance, like on all fours, and then she'd click it like 3 times or something, and the dog would come to her and just be like, oh cool, now what do we get to play? And like she had the clicker plus these commands, and I was like,
this is the like a clicker, like audibly click?
Audible click, yeah. Like like you could just hear like click click and then and a click click click.
Yeah, because there's like the clickers, and then there's also like the e-collar with the
No, it wasn't like shocking them. It was like a verbal or an audible click click. Yeah. And it's like a little plastic toy or something. And I was like, dude, this is so cool. I'm like, how much did this cost to get this dog like clickable? She's like, he went away for like 6 weeks, then came back, and then it was like a 6-month program. He says like, I probably spent $5 or $10 on this shit. And I was like, I mean, seems kind of worth it because that dog is amazing.
So, good control. Yeah, again, just having that really solid control is nice.
Is there something unique about that clicker, or is that just a different form of verbal commands?
So the clicker is something that's like super popular within dog training, and it's more about like the marketing of it, right? Really? So the click, it's just a marker, right? So whether you click or whether you say good or yes or okay, you're telling the dog some sort of information, right? We're classically conditioning the dog to respond to something, right? Most people, the click means a reward, right? So they'll be clicking and they'll be giving food, and they'll click and food and click and food and click and food. And then eventually they'll say sit, and the dog sits, and then they click, and then the dog gets a piece of food, right? So they're marking it there. What I prefer is to use the word, because for many reasons, right? There's nothing specifically special about the clicker. It just makes a click sound.
It's just a tool,
right? So I prefer to use the voice for one, because I don't ever have to carry a clicker. I could just say a word, right? I just go, okay. And then the dog knows exactly what that means, right?
Right.
And then with our voice, again, we're 2 social creatures that are emotional, and we interact with each other in very like complex ways, right? So how I say the marker could be different too, right? Depending. So there's so much information that you're missing on the clicker that you get with the word, right? How excited am I? Do I seem a little frustrated? Like what am I trying to get with you, right? Because just you normally, just every other person, when they're talking to their dog, they talk in different tones, and the dog understands. Like they feel the vibe, right? They know when you're angry. They don't have to know that you're saying like fuck you, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, they know when you're upset, right? You're loud, and your body posture is different. So all of that information I'm giving to my dog when I'm talking to him in specific ways and saying certain words, right? Yeah. Because I can inflect it and change it so much. So you miss out on a lot of that with the clicker. And again, I don't have to carry a fucking clicker.
Yeah. Do you have any ideas with like, we'll just call it basic training, right? Like these aren't the Delta Force of dogs, but like basic training, how many commands you can get them to understand, or like kind of like your basic suite of like, all right, Scott, I'm going to take your new dogs, I'm going to bring them back in 6 weeks. They're going to be basically under control, and then here we're going to have some follow-up plan for you. Yeah. Is it like they can understand 3 commands, 30 commands? Like what's
So on the extreme end, so there's different intelligence in dogs, just like people.
Just like people. I'm like a 2-command type of guy.
Right. So there was actually a border collie named Chaser, and this guy had her, and he wanted to teach the dog different like words and commands for different things. And so he basically just had buckets and buckets of different like plush toys that were different things, like a plush cheeseburger, a plush banana, a plush bat, like just all different, whatever kind of like stuffed animals that you could have and different things. And he would assign a specific word. Like if it was a taco, he would call that thing taco or kitty or the heart or whatever it was. And that dog understood well over 2,000 words.
What the fuck?
And it was complex too. It wasn't just like the dog understood the words. He could give the dog different commands within a sentence to go and do to that. So he could say, he would be behind a wall, and he would be with the dog, and he would say, go find Taco. Go bring Taco to me. Go bring Taco. And the dog would go and pick up the taco and then bring it
out
to
of
him
like
and drop
2,000 plush animals.
No. He would put like a few out at a time, right? But the dog has to specifically know the name of that one toy,
right?
And then he would say, "Go bring it to me." And the dog would go around. The dog would bring it to him, and then he'd say, "Okay, go nose the heart. Go nose the heart." And the dog would go over and then bump the heart with the nose. So the dog is understanding different concepts of what to do with those specific words, not just like go get each toy. He had specific different things that he could do to each toy, as well as, so this dog understood thousands of
that's
going
to be like the Einstein of dogs, though.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So that's again on the extreme end, and again, we don't need that for everyday life, right? Most dogs.
I don't have 2,000 things in my house right now.
Most dogs are going to be fine with like 5 to 10 basic commands, right?
Got it.
Sit, come, stay, down. The recall, come,
attack.
Heel, attack. If it's a protection dog, like they're going to have more commands, obviously, because they're going to be doing more complex stuff. But yeah, for like a regular house dog, they're going to have like 10 kind of formal commands, and then leave it, stuff like that. Out, go away. You can have a command for them to like run away. You can make them do anything you've seen them do and put a word to it. So it just kind of depends on what you want. But for most basic people, it's like 5 to 10 words. The basic stuff. And then I always tell people, look, you're going to have these formal commands and these words that you know and how to communicate with the dog in this very specific way. But you're also just going to be hanging out and talking with the dog, just like we all do.
Right.
I give my dog, when we're in the house together, he doesn't have any collars, leashes on, anything. He's hanging out with me. I almost never use any formal commands that he knows, like for when we're doing actual like training stuff, right? I'm just like, hey, buddy, come on, let's go inside. And he's like, oh, let's go inside. Okay, cool. And then I'm like, hey, you ready for your
By the way, I
food?
like your dog voice. You're like, yeah, come on.
Right, yeah, like I just picture him doing that, my dog
Totally.
Cutter. Yeah.
This is a tough question, especially for somebody in your line of work. Is any dog beyond saving? Like, is there some that just have to be put down?
Yeah. I mean, there's some that get there eventually, and there's so many different reasons that we could go into, but for the most part, most of them aren't there.
Yeah.
One big issue that can happen within dog training, and it can happen I know you don't know specifically too many deep things, but there's kind of like wars going on within the dog training community, and there's like force-free people that don't want to use tools in specific ways and just want to use like food and positive reinforcement, and then there's kind of the balanced trainers that are willing to use tools and kind of...
When you say tools, do you mean like those collars that have like the little spikes on them?
Prong collars, e-collars, different things. And so there's kind of, sides that people get on and they go back and forth, right? How we do things within TWC is kind of different. Like, we would be considered balanced trainers because we do use tools, but how we use tools and how we do kind of the entire foundational learning of the dog is completely different. And so, within that, there can be problems where if somebody is just doing like force-free stuff and, maybe they've been training dogs for 5 years and they, know how to do obedience and know how to train the dog to do specific things. And then they get an aggression case where you're not going to fix it with giving the dog a cookie. You know what I mean? There's things that have to happen. There's boundaries that have to be set, and there's very specific ways that you have to go through it depending on what the dog is, what they're showing, what they're doing. And if you don't know those things, it can seem like the dog is just unsavable, just too aggressive, right? There's dogs that have killed dogs that can be trained, that can be okay, right, in certain situations and actually be livable and safe and do all these things, right? But again, you have to look at the dog. You have to make sure that health issues are taken care of. The dog's not in pain. There's so many weird things that can happen.
Right.
There are rare cases where there's like neurological things where something's just like off in the brain of the dog.
Right.
But again, this stuff is like pretty rare.
Yeah.
And it can be talked about as like a pretty like hot topic, and some things will get, pushed into those categories that aren't really that, but they'll get blamed on that because it's a better story than like, well, the dog was just untrained and didn't have a purpose and started going crazy. And when he lashed out, he learned that he could make people, go away or do whatever. He could get what he want. And then the dog just kept escalating because it was within him to have that confidence of like, no, I'm going to run the house now. Right?
Right.
Yeah. And it can be scary. You know what I mean? And people don't know what to do. They have this animal. They're not trainers.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can be interesting for sure.
Interesting. All right. I always like to close on a couple questions. Like, obviously, you're building your business. Well, before we get to my 2 closing questions, you're building your business. How, is it all word of mouth? Is there like a doggy directory? Is that why you're working so much on Instagram?
Yeah, it's mostly just word of mouth stuff. Because I'm a TWC certified trainer, I'm on their website. If you're in any area in the world, we have trainers all over the world. I'm the only one in Nevada, by the way, certified.
Nice.
But there's a directory there where you can look if you're interested in working with somebody who's doing things slightly different.
Dog people would know what TWC is, right? Like
some
people
do, some people don't.
Okay.
Yeah, some people don't. There's only he's only been doing it for maybe 4 years now, putting his school on.
Yeah.
So there's only maybe a little over 100 of us in the world right now. So yeah, but it's building. There's a lot of good trainers that have been signing up for it and going through the program and doing it, and it's been really cool. And our community is super tight knit. We all get together and we do Zoom calls every few months so that we can all see each other and talk, because we're spread all over the world. We got people in Singapore, we got people in the UK, Canada, all over the U.S. So it's really cool. We all come together, and then usually at least once a year we all meet up back on the compound in Florida with Ivan, and we do hands-on stuff, like a 3-day seminar type thing where we can all get a refresher, do hands-on stuff, work through interesting cases that might be there.
What's the cost for this stuff? Like, is it per lesson, per package? You kind of evaluate what type of
training?
Yeah, do you kind of evaluate what type of cars in the front yard and then decide what you're going to charge?
No.
You're like a plumber. You have one price if they drive in a Honda Accord, one price if they drive a Mercedes, or what is this? What does training cost?
Yeah, so how my program's laid out, I have single individual sessions. Again, if somebody just wants to check on something or see what's going on, or they're I just want to get the dog to stop pulling on the leash, and the dog's fine everywhere else. I just need to be able to walk this dog. I do have individual in-home sessions where I can just come to them and work with the dog. And that's $150 for that, for me to come in, work with you, go over everything. I go over kind of my style of training and showing them, the differences in it. And, people usually just really enjoy the sessions because they get to learn a lot, learn that there's a different way, and they see that the dog is happy, because I start I'm playing with the dog right away. Play is a huge part of TWC and how we do things, right? So much of modern dog training is done with food, and we'll use food for certain things, but the majority of the stuff, at least how I do things, and again, every TWC person is their own trainer and they do things their own way as well as being TWC. But I use tons of play, again, building the relationship, and there's so much things that we can accomplish through specific games with dogs. And all mammals are wired to play, right? It's a primary reinforcer. Kids, even adults, jujitsu, what do we do? We're playing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the sports that we're into, the Golden Knights just won.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a game, and what does it do? It unifies the whole city.
Right.
And it's just a game. It's play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is how important these things are. And so when the people get to see that and they hear the things that I'm talking about and the path that we can take and the level of control that we can get on their dog for them, if they want to get full training and go through a full program like that, they usually really enjoy it. Yeah. So for my 4-week program, it's $4,500, and then I have you can add on things, or if the dog needs more time, things can be added on from
so
there.
$5,000-ish for a perfect dog delivered to my front door.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And
yeah,
two for one special if I buy 2 dogs. No, I'm just kidding with you. That seems like a really reasonable price to, especially when you think how litigious our society has gotten. If you're gonna have a weapon, right? We're into firearms. You got to have a safe, and you got to have this, and you have to have training, and it's more than just buying a $500 firearm. Same thing if you're gonna own a gun, or if you're gonna own a dog. Jesus, if you're gonna own a dog and you're gonna take him to the park and let him off leash, one bite will cost you a lot more than $5,000 if somebody decides to sue your ass.
For sure, yeah.
So yeah, that's awesome, man.
And also too, just the ease of mind that you have when you know that your dog's just cool, and you can and you know that he's not just going to go run off or chase things or attack people or dogs, and you know that you have that high level of control, and you know when you're on those walks on the hike and you can have your dog just walk next to you off leash and be totally cool, and you see the person getting drugged on the other side, and you're like,
it's kind of a flex,
I'm
right?
glad, you're like, I'm glad, I got my dog under control, you know what I mean? You just know that person's struggling, because I know so many people that are just struggling with their dog, and it weighs heavily on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These dogs are important parts of our lives.
Yeah.
And if the dog has major behavioral issues, or even like small ones, it can be drastic and cut into your time that you guys can spend together or go out and do things if you know the dog's just going to go crazy. And like, you're just thinking about that all the time. Every time you see the dog, you go to take him out, you're just like preparing for like, I hope we don't see another dog, because if we do, I don't know if like he might get away from me. It will run away. So there's so much that goes into it of like just having a well-trained dog that just, you know, puts you at ease.
And like that chill dog that can run alongside you off leash, that just has to be a happier dog than the one that's like dragging their poor owner by the leash and just going ape shit and barking.
Yeah.
Like it's got to be better quality of life for your animal too,
yeah,
right?
for sure, yeah.
Oh man, what's some of the coolest things you've seen dogs do? Like a dog that's super well trained. Like I saw that dog. I'll remember that for the rest of my life, just sitting there waiting for his donut for his master to come out from shopping. What's some cool stuff that you've seen that's like, oh, that's some high level training?
Yeah. So actually, it's kind of funny. There's the show here in town. I think which I'm trying to remember. I think it might have been Opium.
Okay.
One of the shows where they're like it's like a late night show, and they do like many different things, and it's kind of like talent show type stuff. So there'd be somebody like singing or doing something, and then somebody blowing bubbles in a cool way, somebody doing magic tricks, and then there was this one dude that comes out, and he's gonna be doing like, you know, calisthenics type stuff, like, you know, handstands and doing all kinds of stuff on these blocks, and there's this like box that's like at the end of the stage. And so he starts doing like handstands, he's like showing off some stuff, and people are like cheering and stuff. And then he like makes a noise or like says a word, and the box opens up, and this chihuahua comes out, and, you know, we're all like, it's like a pretty small room, and there's like all these people and lights, and there's like music and stuff that's going on. And this chihuahua pops out of the box, runs over to the dude, and the dude's like doing a handstand, and the chihuahua like jumps up on him and like starts doing tricks, and he's like telling dude, the dog like, you know, sits up and like does all these crazy things, and the guy can like do a flip, and the dog goes around, and he'll have the dog jump on him and jump off and do all these crazy things, you know, no leash, no collar, like nothing, you know what I mean? And like that, I'm like, I know, especially for a dog like a chihuahua, where a lot of them can just be like nerve bags, where they're just like scared of everything, or like aggressive and going crazy. Like this dog was so stable. Right? There's noise going on. There's people drinking and shouting, and this guy's doing handstands, and the dog's just like with him. Right? That to me is like amazing. Right?
Yeah.
Because
it's the most dialed in chihuahua ever.
Yeah. And like their relationship is just solid. I know it. Right? That dog didn't look like shit. That dog was like, you know, doing his thing. He had his task to do. He knew exactly. And that dog didn't skip a beat. And I'm like, you know, watching him as a professional trainer, and I'm like, you know, what's going on here? And this dog just nailed every bit of it. So that was something that was just like super impressive to me, where like, you know, you might not think of that, you know, when you talk about dog training, like a night show.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. Have you worked with any show dogs where it's like somebody buys some $20,000 dogs thinking they're going to go to like Westminster, and they're like, this dog, it acts like shit. Like, have you worked with any like real pretty show dogs?
Not anything like crazy like that. I mean, I have worked with show dogs, but a lot of the times people that are like serious about show, like they're kind of in their own community. They're doing like some AKC obedience, or
they're training
or doing they're just kind of training, and they're doing that, and they kind of have like their tight clicks, and they do their own thing. But
how big is this world? Like can I mean, I don't know how to ask it other than to say, like, in the Clark County Valley, can you make a good living training dogs full time? Is there like there's enough business?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, in Vegas, there's so many people. Like, you know what I mean? Everybody has dogs.
Right.
And, you know, again, you're going to do business at varying degrees. Some people just need a session. Right. I had somebody come recently, and they had kind of like a lab, maybe pit bull mix or something, just, you know, kind of a mutt that they had, and a little bit older. And they were like, the dog's super great, gets along with the kids, gets along with other dogs if they're like off leash playing. But if we go on a walk and she sees another dog, the dog just goes crazy. Right. And I'm like, okay, you know, this might, you know, I told him, like, you know, this could need like a board and train type thing, but I do have to evaluate the dog. I always evaluate all the dogs before I do anything, right? I can't look at it over video or on the phone. Like, I need to see the dog in person, see what the energy is, what's going on, feel the vibe, right? And so I see this dog, and after working with it for a little bit and having, like, introducing it to my dog, Cutter, and stuff, and seeing how the dog reacts, and I'm holding it on the leash and stuff, this dog just, it was one of those dogs that she would bark being excited or whatever, but then she would just continue to bark because she just enjoyed it. And all we had to do is say, hey, stop. And then the dog stopped, and then we went on a walk right away, and I had the owner handle the dog, and we went past this fence with these like barking border collies going crazy at the fence, and the dog would normally like explode and go crazy and just like and not be able to, she wouldn't be able to stop it, and the dog just walked by and didn't bark, right? And she's like, well, you know, what the fuck's going on? And I'm like, yeah, there's just like simple communication sometimes can just completely change the picture for the dog, right? And you know, that's not going to be every case. You know, every dog that's barking, they're not going to just need one session like that, but that was one of those things. And I'm like, yeah, like this is, and she was like, whoa, like I thought I was going to have to do like all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, I mean, sometimes, but again, I have to see the dog and see what's really going on.
I like that you bring your dog as like a wing dog. He's like your wingman to like help socialize the other dogs.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll have them come to me, or sometimes I'll bring him with me and go and do stuff.
That's awesome, man. All right. Well, last couple questions here. I always ask, what's your favorite movie, which I want to know, but I also want to know like, what's a great dog movie? So what's your favorite movie? What's a great dog movie? Maybe they're one and the same. And, you know, we're filming this summer of 2023. Like, what are you most looking forward to going into the second half of the year, the end of the year, as you're building your business and such? So favorite movie, favorite dog movie, and what are you looking forward to going into the end of the year?
All right. Favorite movie. So I always struggle with these questions. Like, how everybody, like, I feel like so many people have like lists of like what their favorite things are. But like, just a feel-good movie for me that like I like throwing it back is Jaws. Like me and my grandma used to watch it. My grandma.
How is that a feel-good movie?
Just like it feels good when I watch it, just because I have so many good memories of watching it as a kid.
I was like, yeah, I mean they do kill Jaws at the end, but he gets off a few kills first.
Just like a comfort movie. Like I could put that movie on any time. It could be background noise. I could sit there and watch it and be like excited about it. You know what I mean? Like I used to watch that movie with my grandma. She used to like get me into horror movies when I was like super young.
It's awesome.
And yeah, like I'd be watching Freddy Krueger, you know, when I was like 5, and it's like. But yeah, just so Jaws is a good just classic favorite.
Love it. Any great dog movies or like movies about dog relationships with their owner? I'm trying to think of one that I saw recently. The one where Kevin Costner is the voice of the dog and his owner is like a race car driver, and they go through the whole life cycle of the dog. Oh, what? I think it's called Riding in Cars with Dogs or something. Can you look this up, Chris?
I never saw that one.
It's so good. It's like an emotional tearjerker, and it's Kevin Costner voices the inner voice of the dog, and then the guy that was on the show Heroes plays the like up and coming struggling race car driver, and his wife's just awesome, and it's like a great family movie, but it's from the perspective of the dog.
That's
which is like
the art of racing in the rain.
The art of racing in the rain.
It's so weird.
Yeah,
that sounds like a weird concept, like a race car movie, but also like a dog movie.
Yeah,
dogs narrating it.
Watch it since you work with dogs. I guarantee you're gonna be crying like a little child by the end of it.
Dude, yeah, anything, man. I get like emotional for like movies and songs, and especially if there's dogs, man, and they like, I can't handle it when they're dying and stuff. But I would say for me, like a good like favorite dog movie, I would like do a throwback to like Homeward Bound. I saw that one like pop up on like Netflix or something. I'm like, oh dang, I haven't watched that in probably over 20 years.
So good,
and it's it's just like. Man, those movies were so powerful, and it was cool because, like, those dogs were free. That whole movie was about those dogs being free and trying to get back to their people. It's just like about like having an awesome relationship, and they're like trying to go and travel, and the cat and all that.
I'm gonna, because there's like 2 dogs and a cat, right, that are trying to get back to him. Yeah. I'm gonna watch that with my kids this weekend because it's been probably 20 years since I saw that movie too. I remember having a soft spot in my heart. And then, what are you looking forward to, either personally, professionally, building out your business the second half of the year? So, like, what's on the radar for you?
So, kind of like, I mean, I've told people like on my page and stuff, but kind of funny that I'm here today. Today was my last day as a mechanic at the shop. So while I've been building this dog training business for years and years, coming up and training my own dogs and doing all this stuff. For the last 12 years, I've been a professional mechanic, and today was my last day.
Finally, real?
Yep, loaded up my toolbox, took it home.
June 30th, last day at work.
Last day at work.
Going all in on the entrepreneur journey.
Going all in with dog training.
What type of mechanic are you?
So I worked at an independent shop called Wally's Precision Auto Care. We did Hondas, Acuras, Toyota, and Lexus. Nice. All the guys there are awesome, so if anybody has those cars, definitely hit them up.
Yeah.
Family-owned shop. The shop's been there for 40-plus years. I think it's the oldest, like, continuously running family shop in Vegas. But
so you just went way up on our like apocalypse draft card, because now you can. Now I know you can fix things and train killer dogs.
Yeah, I do a lot of stuff.
Perfect. Do you think you're gonna miss being a mechanic at all? Because
no, I won't. I've been. This has been like years coming, so it's been like a long preparation, and just, you know what I mean, trying to find. I did many different things before I realized when I found TWC, that's what really convinced me to go all in for the dogs and doing that and seeing that, meeting with the other trainers and stuff that are doing it. I didn't even really realize that it was, I don't even know why I didn't think about it as like a job prospect. It was just something that I did and was passionate about, and like I would help people sometimes, but realizing like, oh yeah, like you can actually like be a dog trainer and live a successful life and do a lot of cool stuff and meet cool people and travel. You could travel and work, you could work here. Like so many people it's a very like free life of, you know, doing stuff and seeing Ivan as an example, being here, coming here from Bulgaria and like escaping communism and kind of getting the American dream. Yeah. You know what I mean? And he's just had a really cool life, and he just travels all over, and it's cool. So it's really inspiring. So yeah, today was my last day. So the rest of the half of the year is just going to be focused on helping people with their dogs, building better relationships, fixing problems that they may have that interferes with that relationship, and just getting people out there and having fun with their dogs. You know what I mean? That's at the end of the day, I'm a dog lover. Yeah.
Dude, it comes through in your voice. Like your energy talking about this is, you know, you can tell you're not just like, yeah, so I do this job where I look at spreadsheets all day, fuck my life. Yeah. Like for those that aren't watching on YouTube, like the energy is palpable in the room of like how excited you are. Yeah.
Like people always think that I'm crazy because like for like club training with the club, we train 3 times a week. So we train Saturday morning really early, and then we would do a couple nights during the week. And so for the last 7 years, for 3 days a week, every week, I've been training dogs with my group, you know. And, you know, we wake up early because it gets hot out. We do all these things. But Friday night, you know, that's the poppin' time. People are going to go out, have drinks, you know, do whatever. If somebody's having a birthday party, it's going to be on Friday night. So for the last 7 years, people have me out, and they're like, oh, you know, what are you doing tomorrow? You sleeping in? I'm like, no, I got dog training. They're like, dude, like, don't go. You know what I mean? Like, just like sleep in for once. Yeah. And I'm like, no, like it's not my thing. Like I got to get my dog up. My dog needs to work. I have training that I need to get done. The group needs me, especially if I'm doing decoy work, because I work everybody's dog in the group. Yeah. And so it's like, it's important to me, and it always has been. And so like now when people see me train, they're like, oh, like it makes sense. Like of course, why wouldn't you do this? You know what I mean? Like you've been so obsessed with this for so long, and just, you know, it's just been like your passion. Like, why wouldn't you do it? You know what I mean?
That's awesome, man. Well, we'll do everything we can to help spread the word. I got one person, I won't say his name out loud because maybe he'll be embarrassed that his super expensive dog is not working out so well, but I've got somebody to refer you to right away. And man, congratulations. Thanks for coming in. I want to talk to you in like the next few months to see like how growing the business is going, to get some more crazy stories. And everybody, you should follow Vegas Valley K9 on Instagram, because there's some wild videos of like
letter K, number 9. Also.
Yeah, letter K and then the number 9, just like a K9. And yeah, there's some bonker stuff on your Instagram of dogs that are really well behaved, and then some that not so well behaved.
Yeah, yeah. There's videos of me in the bite suit doing evals with people, and dogs, you know, attacking me and biting me and stuff. So yeah,
what a crazy job you've chosen, man. So congratulations, dude. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, so I appreciate it, man.
Thanks.